All right, let's get started today. I got a handheld mic so I can move around a little bit. Thank you all for taking time out of your very busy schedules to come and hear about our model sites. Our teams have worked diligently throughout the school year, set some really high and lofty goals for the school year, have worked and checked in with the project success staff throughout the school year. So we want to take today to celebrate that and also highlight all of the hard work they have done. So our teams today are located throughout the room, so we're going to have them stand up and introduce themselves in a minute, and then they will have 10 minutes to share out, and that is very difficult to share out a year's of work in 10 minutes, but they're going to strive to do so. After that 10 minutes, we will open it up to a panel, and that's where the questions come to you. So whatever questions you may have for our panel team or the teams in general, we will come to you with the mic and make sure that you can ask those questions throughout. We want to make sure that during the presentations we allow them to share, and then during that panel, that is when it goes to you to ask those questions about their process, the beginning, their next steps, and really specifically towards their goals. So we want to be able to use that time specifically. So our teams today, in the overview of our day, we're going to have our teams introduce themselves. We're going to share a lot about our goals that we have had through the model site. Many of our teams have worked on everything from introduction to content connectors and using them intentionally in instruction to curriculum mapping for a year. So we want to highlight that work as well. We also want to look at really thinking about what questions you have for that team, so gather those as we go, and we'll get our presentation up in just a second. Our goals as a model site team was really to meet teachers where they were and really create the best practices possible in the classroom. So really thinking about where teams were and where they wanted to go, and how do we internally build those goals, and how do we as a project success team support that process. So many of our teachers teach multiple grade levels, as all of you do, and so how do we make intentional use of the content connectors during that time? How do we create lesson plans purposefully through that process? So our teams are here today. Bloomfield High School, we have Kokomo High School here. We'll have them kind of wave and they'll introduce themselves in a minute. We have New Pal High School, Hamilton Heights is back there. We also have Greenfield Central Memorial Park from Fort Wayne. It's a middle school. And then Hoover Elementary are all of our model sites, and they're all going to have time to share about their processes. We're also going to be thinking about, as we move on from those model sites, questions that you may have in the process. Our model sites begin in different process and different locations, each one of them. So our goal for the model sites was to meet people where they were, to make sure that we built those best practices in place, and to give teams those the ability to share out and share with other teachers those best practices in the classroom. So we really looked at creating very diverse teams with our model sites, making sure that we had leadership involved to help support. We know that sometimes we need curriculum. Sometimes we need time to be collaborative and out of the classroom, and we need subs to be able to meet and work towards our goals. So our goal was really to look at how do we have a very diverse team that includes leadership, the classroom teacher, both special ed and gen ed teachers. Such an important piece of our work is creating those inclusive opportunities, sharing work, and also looking at how as special educators, we can look at what's happening in the gen ed and align to that and make sure that we are supporting students with that grade level content and standards. We made sure that we also were including paraprofessionals, such an essential part of our model sites, but our classrooms in general, making sure that we had them aware of the why we're working towards content connectors, why we work towards best practice, and what are those best practices. And then making sure all around we had those related services personnel as part of those teams. So you're going to hear about that process, about each person's team as we move forward today. All of our teams worked on different goals. So we had teams working on curriculum mapping. We had teams starting with taking a content connector and making it as intentional as possible in the classroom. For many of us, especially with our paraprofessionals, we started with least dangerous assumption, making sure that we were aligning positive communication, making sure that we were searching for that communication in all of our students, and making sure that we were very intentional about setting high expectations. And with that, aligning our supports and services. We also looked at curriculum, and a lot of our teams really thought about, okay, we've looked at the content connectors, we've unpacked them a little bit, now what do we have, what materials, what supports do we have to teach to it? And so each of our team is coming from a completely different background on what they were working on, so it'll be great to hear where each team started, but also what their process was and what their next steps are. And today will really be a celebration of those teams. So we're going to start with our Bloomfield team. We're going to allow them to introduce themselves. They're going to stand up and just share who they are and what their kind of their role is in their district. And we'll move with the mic. So if you know Project Success Trainings, you know that we put our own pictures in there as team members. You've probably seen pictures of our kids and things. So we wanted to amplify that with our teams doing some photos. So some of them stepped outside of their comfort zone to do some great pictures for us, so thank you for that. So Bloomfield.
Our team here, I'm Kelly Cochran, I'm a high school teacher at Bloomfield. And as you can tell, we've got a large team, but 4 paras, and of course they are holding down the fort. They're holding down the fort and taking charge there, and they are awesome. Big, huge part of our team, and our principal is also. And then we've got a general education teacher, Tracy Hughes, who is on the way here. Okay, I'm going to pass that.
Sorry, I'm going to hand you this one too. If you could just hold that up too.
Okay. I'm not real sure what to do with this. Okay. My name is Kristen Moffitt. I'm the speech therapist, and I just work with a wonderful group of ladies, and we just go in and work with the kids, and I'm there to support their communication skills. So that's me.
I'm Julia Cruz, and I'm the occupational therapist that works at Bloomfield. It's just one of the school corporations I service through our local co-op. So mostly I work with Kelly. She comes to me with problems, or how can we adapt something or make something accessible for a kid within the curriculum or some of their special projects, and she's great about that. So my job there is easy.
And I'm Dana Williams. I am the special education coordinator for our Green Sullivan Special Ed Cooperative, and Bloomfield High School is in one of our school districts.
We are learning the world of mics here.
Right. And we don't. Okay. I'm Kelly Barker, Vice Principal at Kokomo High School.
And I'm Liddy Saban. I'm the transition teacher at Kokomo High School.
We have about half of our team in that picture that kind of interact daily, but it was hard to get those transferring from building to building. I'm sure most of you know how that is. So there's part of our team up there.
All right, New Powell High School, right here.
My name is Kara Westerman. I am the classroom teacher. On our team that's not here is Joanna Mulligan. She is our special ed assistant director. And Lindsay Stamper is our occupational therapist.
And I'm Sarah Reddington. I'm the speech therapist at the high school, so I work with her Central Skills Room.
All right, Hamilton Heights is hiding in the back here. Okay, you have to hold this one too. Some stool mics.
Hi, I'm Kim Lucky. I'm the Director of Special Ed at Hamilton Heights, and stand up. Our team is Ann Fletcher. She's with our co-op. She's a professional development and has taught in life skills in various classrooms, so is a great asset. Amy Soder is our speech therapist that works across our district in all of the life skills classrooms. Keeney Magden is our functional academics classroom teacher at the high school. Susan McCoskey is our life skills classroom teacher at the high school. And then Sarah Petty is an IA in our functional academics classroom, and then our last member, our two last members, one's an English teacher, and as you all know, it's research paper time and couldn't get her out. And our other one actually is now on our school board, and they have a school board meeting today, and she's going to come down after that, but she was a previous English teacher and then had been an instructional assistant for us, and so we capitalized on all of her skills.
All right, Greenfield Central, there you are. So one thing on that last slide, Julie Davis helped Keeney and her team really look at English language arts curriculum. So if you have questions about that, that's a good place to go.
Hi, my name is Adam Richardville. I teach U.S. history as a general ed teacher.
My name is Nicholas Yule, and I teach science, gen ed.
I'm Anna Finley, and I am the classroom teacher for special education.
I'm Jessica Montgomery. I'm the speech pathologist for Greenfield Junior High. What do I hold down? I don't think you're holding anything. I'm Jasmine Lee. I'm the occupational therapist.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, Fort Wayne is right there. Please introduce yourselves. So you have to hold this one too. So I'll put it like that. Just hold it. Pick it up on the camera.
I'm Mary Kay Moshgani. I'm compliance specialist for Fort Wayne. The rest of our team couldn't make it today. We had an awesome gen ed math teacher that really helped with the content connectors.
I'm Deb Cook, and I'm the functional skills teacher in middle school.
Thank you. All right. And next, but not last, our Hoover Elementary team up here. We put elementary in the front, high school hides in the back. It's just how things go.
Thank you. I'm Laura Kuhn. I work as part of our co-op with Hoover Elementary at West Central, and I'm the autism specialist, but I also work with our life skill programs.
And I'm Heather Sutton. I teach the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade life skills class. I'm the classroom teacher.
And I'm Amy Selby. I'm the director of special education for our cooperative.
All right, thank you for rolling with the mics there, and thank you teams for taking time out of your schedule to be here and to make sure that you are able to share this important work. Really what we asked for when we were looking for our team presentations was really looking at what the process was. We know that when we work through content connectors and we're starting with rigorous academic standards and students with significant needs, that we have to really take some time as special educators to get familiar with the standards and to think about what those modifications and those unpacking of the standards and how do we align and make it very intentional. So we knew that this was a process, so this is the process of which our teams went through. So where they were in the beginning, what it was like throughout the school year, and then really what their next steps are. This is our first cohort. I know many of you are coming in through the second cohort, so we have some of our new model sites for next school year here as well. But we're continuing to work with our first cohort and really work at what are those next steps. So our teams are going to share out really what that process was for them. So our first team is Bloomfield High School, and each team will have 10 minutes to share. Again, if you have questions, please jot those down and we'll address those during the panel. And if there are specific teams that you have questions for, please make sure that you highlight that so we can direct those questions there.
All right. I want to thank you for having us here. We're glad to be here and to share out. It's been a great year, very busy year, but as well as I'm sure you all know that too. We're in the beginning where we were at, thinking, we were using the unique curriculum. I don't know how many of you use that. I love it. It's got the content connectors for the language arts, math, science, social studies. So that's where we were at the beginning. In the class with our general education teacher, FACS. They also go out to art and to various other gen ed classes who are wonderful with our students, our high school students' life skills. But then we were wondering, what can we do to take our students and take the content connectors and take the grade level standards. Okay, instead of this? Okay, hello? Okay, good, I can move around.
outside of the classroom, not just in the gen ed as well, because we have great gen ed teachers that are on board with this, and hopefully Tracy will be here, our gen ed teacher. But how can we take it outside the classroom into our school? We're a small school, but get the students out and involved. So we were thinking outside of the box is what we want to do. And so, why do we want to do that? To share beyond the classroom. So collaboration among all parties. And so I've got the team, and you saw we had a big team picture at the beginning, and my paras for them are amazing. We couldn't do it without them. And then intentional instruction, again, and that was when Meredith and Ashley came to talk to us. It really, that really hit home with, we teach, every day, but being intentional with the words that we use and the vocabulary that we use. And so we wanted to do that and take that outside the classroom. Academic standards, it goes along with the standards, the language arts, the math that we're going to be showing you. And then authentic lessons and activities. And then modifications as needed for all to participate. Okay. All right, so we developed 2 activities, 2 programs within the school. Our Cardinal Cafe and Cardinal Creations. And yesterday we were at the Focus on Inclusion conference with our Cardinal Creations. And we do crafts and things with the Cardinal Creations. And we took that into a joint project between the life skills peer tutors, I have some peer tutors, the FACS students, and the school staff who are on board with it 100%, and they're wonderful with that. And so we make various crafts, and within those activities, they are authentic activities that the students do, and they find pride in it, and they love it. There's the content connectors and the Indiana academic standards that are involved in that, as well as in the FACS, the gen ed standards with that. And so here's some of our kids in action, okay? And what we wanted to do also with the intentional is to make sure that every student was involved. No matter the level of where they were at, they're involved with it. And I think that, that's my passion, and all of us in here is to make sure that every student is involved. And so even some of our students that have more significant disabilities, abilities, they could also participate. And so they would stamp things on the back of some of our crafts. Okay, like our logo stamp. Others were painting and doing different things. And so here's our Cardinal Cafe. And this is the crafts being made with the FACS students. So the gen ed students come into our room, or we go into the FACS, and we work together as a team. And we get to, participate with one another, and it's amazing to watch. And then we take that out into the school, and our students are involved. And within that, we have the standards within that, and you'll see in just a minute with the slides, okay? So again, why do we want to think outside the box? Fosters inclusion. I mean, we are out there, we are together with the other students. It's exciting to see that happen. And provides an authentic work experience, and it extends across course curriculums. We talked about, our students discussed how it also involves science, the things that we do. It involves history. It involves math, and they would label, tell us how, and I'll show you in a minute, charts that we did through Google Docs and Google Forms with that. And then improves in academic skills, social skills, communication. And one of the big things is it empowers the students with self-confidence. When they're out there and they've got their crafts to sell and the things that they've made with their hands, and the Cardinal Cafe, the cold coffee drinks, they are so proud, and the general education students, and we're all working together as one. And I think that is just amazing to watch. And again, we don't want to forget that, especially that we're covering those academic standards. We are intentionally using the standards, but in an authentic work experience for the students, and I think that's really important. Okay, so I won't bore you with, with all the standards, but there's just some, okay, of nutrition and wellness. That's the FACT standards that we cover within our Cardinal Creations and our Cardinal Cafe. Okay. There's the content connectors that we're covering, and we could go on and name more, okay? And then there's one of them that we've unpacked so that all students are participating, okay? There's our language arts content connector, and the one before that, I'm sorry, was the FACS content connector, the general education FACS content connector, our standard broken down and unpacked. Okay. Okay, this one, the students love to create Google Forms. And so we sent out to the teachers, we were asking about a price, how much we should charge for the tiles. I don't know if they brought the tiles up, but they're coasters. So we sold a lot of those yesterday. And so we sent out a Google form to teachers asking, should it be $2 or $3? You know, and that's one of the content connectors. That's one of the advanced standards that we're doing. And then we got back the results, and we looked at it up on the smart board. And they were amazed, and it was amazing to watch them see the breakdown and talk to us about it, and what did you see from that, and which one, you know, had the most. And so I just can't say enough of how amazing that was, and they are helping to create those Google Forms. And again, that's one of the the standards, the academic standards. Okay, some of our challenges as we did this and took this upon us as at the Bloomfield High School was nutritional guidelines because of the Cardinal Cafe and selling the drinks. But we had tremendous support from the administration. They were on board with it, and they realized that it's part of our curriculum. And so, we had that support, and so we were able to go ahead and do that. All right, and then purchasing materials and projects for the projects, it's expensive. But then we had the community who gave us free wood, and free materials. And then we had the American Legion that donated $500 to our class for supplies. So we so not only just in our school, but we reached out into the community. And we sell our crafts also into the community. So it was a community-wide thing. And then, so like it established relationships within the businesses, and they support it. The people at the courthouse are buying our crafts and waiting for us to sell things around Christmas time. So again, we were doing some of those things, but being really intentional with covering the standards and the content connectors and unpacking those and really showing the students, the reason why we're doing this, okay? Also collaborate with business class to form, next steps. Our next steps then, after we've got this established, is we have a relationship with the FACS teacher and the art as well, but we're wanting to branch out into the business department because we know that there's marketing experiences that the students could do. There's business management within having the businesses, the Cardinal Cafe and the Cardinal Creations, and so we're going to reach out to the business and get those students involved and those teachers involved. And then we're going to collaborate more with business partners within the community, okay? And then we're going to also have events like we have our Apple Festival in Bloomfield, and so we're going to have a booth there this year. So we're branching out, and so even while we're doing those, and yesterday at the Focus on Inclusion conference, we are still covering standards. We're still providing the students, the basis of the academic standards, but in an authentic setting. And they love it. They just absolutely love it, and they feel so empowered by it, and it's wonderful to see how they react to that, okay? All right, and I don't want to leave any of these ladies out, so I'm going to let Ms. Williams talk to us, because again, without their support, without the team, we could not, have, and there's our general education teacher coming in, Tracy Hughes. We could not do it, and the students, of course, are a huge part of our team. So proud of them and their accomplishments this year that they've done. And again, I can't give enough praise to my paras, my 3 paras that are keeping things running together the last 2 days. They are amazing, and they are on board with it. And the intentionality of making it real and authentic and using those standards, and they understand that. And then also, pursuing competence for every student and getting every student involved, no matter what their ability level is. And it's just wonderful to see that. And I'm going to let the other ones talk, okay?
Being in a cooperative, our life skills program hasn't always been at Bloomfield High School. So I think that it's very important to note that we have taken baby steps, and since having Kelly on board, we have absolutely made a lot of great connections and rapport, and really having the students be more involved in the school, and we really appreciate all of her hard work and efforts.
Well, I don't have really much more to add because I think Kelly pretty much hit everything. But the main things I'd like to reiterate is collaboration, authenticity, and intentional. Those three words, because we want to collaborate with each other. And how can I, as the speech pathologist, work with the classroom teacher to enhance their communication skills in a purposeful way, authentic. And I really like the program that she has incorporated as far as the Cardinal Cafe. It gets them out there. It gets them in the community because they're going to communicate not just in the classroom, not just in an academic setting, but in the community. So I think she's hitting it right there.
I would just say the same thing. Kelly's great. I've worked in a lot of different schools, and she's a wonderful teacher. I know you don't always get that, but she's just been great because we want to be there and help. A lot of places don't want help and collaboration, but I think that's just been the key to the success at Bloomfield. And also, really quick, I was going to say, you forgot to tell him the money they raise from everything, they vote on a charity they want to give the money to. So they're also giving back to the community that way.
Sorry, I was late. This has been a wonderful opportunity for me to, I was teaching at Eastern Green for 12 years, and I have transitioned to Bloomfield. And with Kelly and I, the kids have been in my advanced nutrition and wellness class. I assigned for them to put together a commercial. They had come up with a product and put together a commercial, and Kelly and them ran with it, and us together. It turned out to be a great thing.
All right, and that's what we're going to show you real quick, and we may not be able to watch all of it because I don't know the time. Okay, all right, that's okay. Anyway, it just shows that how the school is all involved in it, and one of the other students, a senior, we went to her and asked her, she's on the yearbook committee, and she just really took it and kind of ran with it, and the whole school got involved with it. But you can go to YouTube and it's Cardinal Cafe and pull it up. But it's really cute, and it shows the point of what we're talking about, that the whole school is behind the project. Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you, Kelly at Bloomfield High School. Just so you know, that is a live link. We cannot access YouTube right now, but that will be there. So please take a moment when you get back to your home districts to look at that video of the Cardinal Cafe. It's there. It's just a couple minutes long, but there for you to look at your convenience. Our next team is Kokomo High School, so we'll allow them to come up and share the work that they have done.
We're going to share a little about where we started, kind of where we're at now, and then where we're headed. We were very, very self-contained. We had 3 life skills classes. One was specifically an autism center, and one was the kind of ancient term of PVE. We started an autism center in elementary for kids with really significant needs, but that structure was critical to their success during the day. So just, 2 years ago, we brought the autism center. Those students were coming to the high school. So as we were in really a time of transition, we thought, why not go ahead and just incorporate everyone, because they'll have the same really expectations for certificate of completion, which is a good thing. So all 4 classes, well, I'll get to that in a second. We were all self-contained. And then the TORs, really we had our life skills, had broken into grades 9 and 10 for one room, and then 11 and 12, which to really help us focus on transition for middle school. And then the older students could focus on their transition into adulthood. Then I talked about our students with autism. They were really grades 9 through 12 in the same classroom, which was structured very differently for their needs. It was very specifically centers. It was a very routine day. And they didn't really move around, so to speak, like the other students did. If they could, they did. They joined the lunchroom, they joined adaptive PE class, so we got them out as much as we could. Serving kids, what it looked like. The PVE was separate. They were kind of their own island. I've been at Kokomo High School for 19 years, and as long as I taught and had been an administrator, they were always their own island. There was one room, and they did their own projects. You know, they were the students not able to earn a diploma, but not as low functioning as our life skills kids, so they weren't really integrated all together very much. Functional skills was the primary focus. Everything, I shouldn't say everything, because there was really some remedial academic work. There was academics included, but it was really primary functional. They all participated in community-based instruction. They really enjoyed it. It allows us to really teach them those transitional skills and then really assess what they still need, because our goal was for them to be as independent living and working as possible. Then we're really proud of our students at Kokomo High School. They really embrace our students with special needs. We don't really face any of the taunting. There isn't a fear that our gen ed kids wouldn't accept them. It was kind of like our protective mothering, wouldn't you think, that wanted to keep them in under our care. So we would get them out as the kids wanted to, and they did participate. We have a unified track. And there's lots of clubs and activities that their peers would come get them and take them to, but it wasn't significantly a part of the school day.
So this is my 22nd year teaching, and I would say that my 20th year teaching, when Mrs. Barker said we're going to maybe a little bit switch to some more academics, I was okay with that. This year when she came to me and said we're doing all academics, wow, I was a little overwhelmed. I thought, I'm done. But it's been a fantastic year. Actually, it's been my best year yet teaching, so it's been a blast. So our goals were that we were going to service each student at their level, which when we were talking about, when we went through the course catalog and doing algebra and biology, and I thought, this is nuts, this is crazy, but we unpacked standards and broke it down, and it's been fantastic. So we switched from the more functional to academic driven, which has been fun. And we had to change everyone's mindset, including myself. The parents, we had a big meeting with the parents, which was, most of them were on board. They kind of didn't understand, but they've come around. They like to see the stuff that their kids are doing. And we've all just, it's kind of been a learning process for everyone. They've enjoyed it. And we were just giving them access to what their gen ed peers are getting. So we're just kind of breaking it down for them. Our focus this year, a lot of it has been curriculum mapping. We started the school year off over the summer. We all picked our subjects and we curriculum mapped. But thanks to Heidi, we figured that we should take our gen ed curriculum maps and align them to that. So that's where we are now. We're just taking the gen ed curriculum maps and aligning ours to the gen ed. So, and we're working on the certificate of completion, kind of going through a 4-year plan for every kid. That's where we are right now. And also we have 4 teachers, so each student rotates all day long between the 4 teachers because we all teach something different. So that was something we kind of had to all get on the same page with, was there's 4 teachers who have 4 different teaching styles. So these kiddos are used to being with one teacher all day long, so they know the expectations of that teacher. So we're running into behavior problems when one teacher expected everyone to hang their backpacks up. Another teacher didn't care if they had it on the floor. Another teacher wanted everyone to put them on the back of their, so we kind of, us 4 teachers had to compromise, kind of a give and take, and come up with expectations so that all 4 of us were on the same page, so the kids weren't struggling with, behaviors in every classroom with different expectations. We expose them to grade level standards, and we design that to meet everyone's needs. We have learning targets, and we have just really researched tons of, we've had different resources. Heidi's been a great resource for that. She's supplied us with so much this year. The supports we needed, we had lots of professional development, because this was a huge shift for us. Again, we had to educate everyone in the building, gen ed teachers, administrators, parents, everyone about the certificate of completion. The four of us and Mrs. Barker met at first every week, and then we kind of went to every other week. We had weekly meetings to talk about celebrations, things that weren't going so well, our next step. We actually even broke it down, like each time we talked about 5 kids, you know, things that we needed to change, resources we needed. We did a lot of curriculum mapping and identifying priority standards and connecting content connectors. And then we had the weekly professional development. So what's it look like today? Sorry. So the students come in, and we all 4 teachers have math, reading, social studies, science, and we have health. We have a civics class.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 3 different social studies.
Yes. So we have English 9, 10, 11, 12. So we divide the kids into, we did it by grade. So every period they switch classes. So I have 6 different classes throughout the day, which is nice because, as we all know, having the same kids all day long is taxing. So now you get fresh faces every period, which is nice. So they switch just like everyone else. We have a sensory room, and some of the kids have it scheduled into their day when they need a break, and others, we just know that when they've reached their limit, that's just an option to go to the sensory room. And we have lots of kids who go out to gen ed classrooms with our champion teachers. We have some that go out for English, science, and social studies, I know for sure. And then we have lots of kids who have paid jobs in the community. And our main focus is to get the juniors and the seniors all out working either in volunteer jobs or paid positions.
How we're implementing the content connectors is still the challenge that we will face probably daily and yearly until we master, and as they stay consistent or change, we'll roll with it. So they've done the curriculum maps, and we're learning, really breaking down the core content connectors so that it's we're not overwhelmed by the number of standards the teacher should be covering that will still allow them to focus on academic and transition. So this is really, probably, would you agree, one of the most challenging parts right now. So we use unique learning systems plus the additional resources, and this will continue to do scope and sequence. Aligning with the content connectors is really our next hurdle. Our challenges, I think we probably have a time limit, so I'll run these pretty quickly. We knew when we started last year, we spent all last year meeting weekly to plan for what we knew would be a very daunting task. So probably convincing the stakeholders, 1, it's not optional, but 2, it's good for kids. So we started with the classes the teachers wanted to teach. That would be important for them to be looking at the curriculum they were excited about, not feeling like it was a punishment to organize and teach something that they weren't very passionate about. We did a lot of discussion about grade level versus ability level, and in order to get all the units in, it really had to be by grade level, and then break up into groups based on ability within those grade level classes. So we did do some shifting around based on where kids should be, and then we'll have to get creative with all their units later. How many different levels were in the classroom has been a challenge for the teachers, wouldn't you say? But we're working through what they need, and what kind of PD will help us move through that. They've done the curriculum mapping and choosing priority standards. And again, just like with the gen ed teachers, those should all really be like a working document. It's never really done. So we'll continue to evaluate what that looks like. And the content connectors keeps coming up. It has been amazing to partner with Project Success. It's really helped to validate what we knew was really good for kids. It's really helped us move through and push through some of the tough decisions. It's helped with administration because I am at the high school, but then we have the principal and the director, and it's just really helped us have some pretty meaningful conversations. The team collaboration meetings have been invaluable. The teacher's voice is incredibly important in this process, so it's allowed their concerns and celebrations to really be heard when we have to make some district level decisions. K to 12, Heidi and I looked at the program K to 12, so we have an idea of how to raise that expectation for our kids coming in K through 8. We know that that will be a huge game changer for how prepared our kids are coming into 9th grade. And then for next year, we're working on mapping out the 4-year plan. So we'll need to have 4-year and 6-year for kids that can't attain those units in 4 years. The curriculum alignment with the content connectors. We want to continue including, we used to have a really strong like peer buddy program. Teachers would like to bring that back where gen ed kids are coming in to help, but getting them out in the gen ed classroom with those champion teachers is one of our goals. And so kind of a process of what does that look like? Because like Libby said earlier, all 4 teachers have a different idea of how that should work. And so communicating to the gen ed teachers what will help them know and learn prior to sending a student into their classroom really to audit will be critical to that student's success. And we didn't even think about the fact that the fear of the student going to an unknown room to just not even know where to sit would cause the behavior before. So we made several trips to the room, and that process will be important as we have more kids go out. Expanding our vocational practice for grades. Right now we have grades 9 through 12 going out to volunteer, but we won't be able to do that and fit all their units in. So we've kind of had a lot of aha moments about where we should focus even the students' time and energy. And then we're looking forward to the details of the portfolio as they come out, and we'll include these experiences into that. I think I have that. Thanks. Yep. Thanks.
All right, new pal.
Hi, my name again was Kara Westerman with New Pal High School. I am the essential skills teacher. My classroom sounds like a lot of the last 2 classrooms. It was primarily functional based. I focused on all functional academics. There was not a pre or post assessments when I was working with my students on my lessons. I had a huge emphasis on daily and living skills, and every morning we started with a morning meeting, which is kind of a fancy word for calendar time. So I did a lot of just functional daily living skills. Our math was all functional. I did have a reading group, but it was unique driven. And then, we did hygiene and sorting laundry and all of those functional skills. We did school jobs. So very functional based. Now that I've implemented content connector standards and worked with Project Success, I feel like I have a higher academic expectations for my students. We do assessments, both pre and post assessments, to test the student growth. We have a good balance, I feel like, of using the content connector standards and still having those daily living skills. I still think both are important. I feel like we also need to help our kids leave high school and what they're going to be expected to do. And from what I've seen, our student growth has been amazing. Similar, I had a parent question me on why I'm teaching algebra to our kids. I just had a case conference with a parent, and her goal is an algebraic expression goal. And she looked at me and said, "Really, Kara, what is she going to do in a year with algebra?" Because she has 1 year left with us. And I told her that, I don't think I use algebra anymore. Actually, I never planned on using algebra, although I am now teaching it. But just the overall growth that we have seen in our kids is amazing. And it's just not in their math skills. It's in their communication skills. It's in their willingness to learn, their social skills. Since I have implemented a lot of higher expectations, we have seen just overall growth in our kids. And Sarah can definitely attest to that. Go ahead and go next. These are our changes. I have focused a lot in math this school year. We went from a functional math group where I had different station students rotated around and money, numbers, and like time skills, and they would just rotate around those stations, purely functional. We now have math groups based on content connectors. We do pre and post assessments over all of our math topics, and we've been working a lot with curriculum mapping this year, and I've met with our general ed teachers. They've helped me tweak it a lot. And next year, probably one of my biggest challenge is that I tend to focus on a goal until the kids master it. I don't want to move on to the next topic because I really wanted them to master these topics. So next year with our curriculum map, I'm hoping that we will definitely reach all the topics and not focus on our one main area. And Ashley's worked with me a lot on that I don't have to have mastery, but we're introducing all these higher math concepts to them. If you can hit the example, Are we able to do that, to show the examples? Oh, I gave permission to some. Okay. Okay. No problem. The first one just showed unpacking of our goal, and then the second one was just one of my pre and post assessments that I had created for the students. But you can go ahead. This is one of the ways I adapted one of our math activities that we were working on. We were trying to teach the kids positive and negative numbers and plotting a point on a graph, and they were really struggling with the concept, so we just kind of created a big line graph on the ground, and then they would call out a number and then they had to find it. And the kids thought it was a lot of fun and definitely helped them with grasping the topic. So when I'm teaching them something, I try to find multiple ways to work with them on it to make sure that they're mastering and gaining that knowledge. The next one shows, these are two ways, we use Unique still, but this student, when the first one, I was primarily working on, next dollar concepts with her. And she completed this entire worksheet independently. So we were pretty excited about that. The second one, when we were graphing points on the graph, a lot of the students couldn't follow the lines and were really struggling. Their dots would end up all over the graph. So our OT, whenever I have a problem or can't figure out a way to help with the students, our OT is amazing at creating different tools for me to use. So this is something we just created. I think those are like sentence readers, but she kind of put it together, and then the students are able to use that to stay on the line and then plot the point where it needs to go. So it really helped with being able to master that goal, because at first the plots were everywhere and we were struggling. So as you can see, we've come a long ways from functional math with our kids. I think it's been an awesome experience, and I'm excited for another year and hopefully keep going with this. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. I gotta grab all the things. All right. I have to get all the things here. All right, our next team is Hamilton Heights. High school was our focus of our model site, so we're gonna have Kim come up and share about their team and the beginning and the process and the next steps. And the team's right back there if there are questions as well.
All right, you're the clicker. Okay, where we started, being a small district, we originally started focusing on high school, but as you see in some of our slides, it was very hard to separate out what we were doing in the middle school programs and then the elementary programs because it all feeds into there. And having more staff together to collaborate is obviously more beneficial. So we started originally with most of our classes in kind of the traditional old model of self-contained, core content was all coming through there. We were sending students out with either peers or adult staff into specials, community outings, field trips, at the high school level, some of the special classes, electives that they could do of interest area. And then units came about. And so that kind of was a good jumping point to force the conversation. We were very fortunate that we have a very good working relationship already with our general education staff because we had been doing co-teaching with our other populations of special ed. And so this was kind of a natural lead-in to begin that conversation of thinking, how can we create opportunities for other levels of student engagement. And so we began that conversation with the incoming freshmen and picked a few classes to partner with. And as they alluded to earlier, we were very fortunate to have a 30-year veteran English teacher in our district who was also our IA. And so we were able to do a little bit of groundwork and the behind the scenes to get curriculum ready, to have those answers to some of the questions that gen ed staff typically has about what do I do? And so we were able to kind of have those answers ready, which then continue to foster that relationship. Students go in, teachers work with them, and then we continue to monitor the workload and have those conversations back and forth and just kind of know it's a work in progress. I think we probably had more questions than we had answers for the whole first year so far, but everybody was kind of learning together. Supports that were needed, the really nice part, while we were doing this, we were also having conversations in our co-op already about how can we support, in general, our life skills teachers, because as many, in looking on here, it's one class in a building, 2 classes in a district. How do we create that collaborative opportunity for teachers to come together and meet? And so we had already kind of designed a collaborative time for our co-op teachers. So we were able to tie the things that Project Success was doing to help us and expand that conversation with other high school teachers in our co-op, and had monthly meetings that are ongoing with that. And so it expanded the ability to talk math curriculum, the ability to talk English curriculum, to look at government, to look at econ, to have those beginning conversations and know that everybody's in the same boat. We're all kind of looking at it like, yep, we can do this. And so that's where we started. Again, part of the co-op, we were able to share that then with our principals, with our superintendents, so that they kind of had a heads up that this was coming, and we were able to kind of get the stakeholders to understand this was we've got to do it, and here's where we're headed, and then here's how we're going to support our teachers and IAs and staff working on it. Good. Our goal was to get through the process, because we had no idea what we were doing. And so that's the reality. And so I think as we approach it that way, then everybody knows we're going to flounder, we're going to have successes, and we're going to figure it out and come up on the other side with next directions and what did we learn. And if you can't laugh at what you messed up on, you're really not going to get much farther. So we've done a lot of that. Challenges, I think we alluded to at the beginning too, and everybody has, it's just that simple time to collaborate, to find that moment when you can just totally focus on what you need to be doing proactively ahead of time, and not sitting there going, oh my gosh, I have to do these 5 things, but I also have to. And so that's where our monthly meetings have been really important, because we hold them in different places, and so you physically step away and can think and problem solve and plan. And the process, the accountability, so we have check-ins, not super official check-ins, but that, how is it coming, what are we doing, what are the questions that are coming up, and just making sure that we're moving towards that next step of what is kind of our end outcome and what is each person working towards. And that's been really nice. Again, I kind of highlight that co-op piece, and I think that has been a true advantage. They kind of just blended together unknowingly, that they were both happening, and so that's been very helpful to kind of share resources, because this is a very daunting task. If I have Keeney that's going to be working independently and trying to figure out all those curriculums, it's much easier to share and trust that other people can do those things for you too. Good. So our next steps from here are to continue with our co-op group, because while we have a good grasp on our English, starting to get there with our math, there is, it feels like a bazillion other subjects that we have to tackle. And so again, we're working on that philosophy of divide and conquer, and sharing our knowledge and skills and sharing then the output of the product. We're continuing with increasing that independence and going out into the classrooms and the buildings in the younger grades, Because if you build those skills younger, then by the time they get to high school and we really are having to look at those unit courses and how are they blending, then we aren't also tackling those skills that they need to just simply be able to go to the class. And so really working on that younger and they have those beginning skills. We are continuing at the high school level as we have, Susan is up here with our life skills classroom, which is our a little bit lower functioning, less likely to go out to the classes early on. And so how can we continue to blend those two options and pair what academically they're doing in both places and support those differences in the building. And then always important to meet individually. I know we're in a world of social media and technology, and whenever anybody says, well, how do you get your gen ed to work better with you? My first response, and I think my teacher's first response would be, get up out of your room and go talk to the teacher. Because so much we feel like we can convey in emails or phone conversations or text, and this is really a conversation to help them understand they're not in it alone. We are going to put our face in the room. We're there for them. And it begins that conversation of, you can come to me with what you're worried about. I'm going to help you. And it builds that relationship. And so here are just some pictures of in the classroom. And like I said, we really aligned all of our courses, particularly with English for all 4 of the grades at the high school, to the content connectors. They did a really good job. Again, we capitalized on our English teacher who said, oh, this is what we're going to be doing next, so here's where it goes. And so they took all of those standards and then aligned them to the content connectors and then brought in curriculum in different levels to teach the same skills. And so they created theme units, comparable activities for the novels they do, for the papers they write, all of those kinds of things at the various levels. And then the resource sheet, I think they mentioned early on people were looking at curriculum, and that was probably one of our biggest things, that we would have good ideas or we would need to support the teachers, and then it was always, what do we use? And so we have been spending quite a bit of time on looking at various curriculums, the ranges that it gives us, how well it does connect, what are the tools embedded in it, so that we don't have to do more work when we get a curriculum. And so we've included our resource list. Yep, there's 2 pages. And ladies in the hat to dismiss.
All right. One thing I do want to mention is both Susan and Keeney, Keeney's going to sit at the Hamilton Heights High School. We'll sit on our panel this afternoon to talk a little bit about those themed units, working collaboratively with both paraprofessionals and an English teacher in that alignment. Also, Susan brought several assessment and modified versions of some curriculum. So if you have questions on that, please see them as well. All right, so our next team here, Greenfield Junior Senior High School.
Okay, well, you can click. All right, well, this is our class. Go ahead and you can click to the next one. So we have 6 students, varying disabilities. All students receive speech and language. OT is on consult. There's 1 special education teacher, 2 IAs, peer tutors, and mid-year I got a high school helper because it was a lot in gen ed. And then I have, we have gen ed teachers, U.S. history, science, world language, college prep and careers, arts, PE, and health. If there's a peer helpers, you can go on. I'm trying to go fast. Okay, so before very functional skills based, I did take the kids out to art, PE, just different related arts classes. So my kids would do 1 or 2 classes of those, but the rest of the time they were with us. We did community-based instruction 2 to 3 times a week. They all had an in-school job. We would rotate their jobs everything was very functional based. Before special education, I went to Ball State University. The whole focus was on, once they come to junior high, if they don't know how to read and they don't know how, to do numbers, we're gonna focus on them being independent adults. So that has been ingrained in my head, and then as I taught, that's all I did, and I've seen success with that. So I was rolling with it and loving it. And so when they said we were doing this shift in academics, I was like, a little skeptical, not sure what they're talking about, but I'll try my best. The assistant director, she's not here today, but she really focused on us just choosing one subject. Because when we look at it, there's 4 subjects and we're all a little bit overwhelmed, I think, when you're thinking about it. And I like to call these guys, my gen ed teachers, the experts, because they know the content. I don't know the content, really. I'm learning as I'm in there. So anyway, I was a little bit skeptical. But the gen ed classroom, I was thinking they can help me keep the pace, because my director printed off all the content connectors, put them in a binder, and brought them to my room. Do you know how thick it is? Anybody done that? I'm like, seriously, it's like that thick. And that's like 7th and 8th grade, and I'm supposed to teach all this? I don't even know what half of it, most of it means. I will be honest, most of it means. So my higher group of kids can do this for sure. I think they can do this, but I'm really worried that my lower functioning kids are not going to be able to do this. I mean, I take them out to art class and we're having a hard time, and now you want me to take them out to gen ed. So I was a little bit skeptical, but then I do still feel like life skills are important, so can I balance both somehow? That's what I'm thinking. So, gen ed teacher, before, what were you thinking when I said, do this? I forgot. Yeah, you have to hold that.
All right. So before, whenever I was asked to include her students into my class, I was very excited. I was an IA for 4 years, I believe. So I knew what to expect. I took students out into the classroom. So I thought it was a great opportunity to incorporate them, and I knew my students, the gen ed students, would do really well with them. And it's taught the gen ed students a lot, and then also Anna's kids.
And I'm Nick Ewell. I'm a science teacher. So I was kind of worried about a few things. I really wanted them in the classroom because a couple of the gen ed teachers had them. And I said, science is a great avenue to get these kids in. They can really learn hands-on stuff, and we do a lot of labs. So I really thought that was something that they would enjoy, A, and then learn from, B. I was worried about assessments. I knew what I needed to bring to my kids, the gen ed kids, but I didn't know how I was going to adapt those to Anna's kids, and just we'll come back to how that got solved at the end. But then another thing was the behavior. Middle school kids is classroom management first, so I thought bringing kids in that may have just different behavioral things going on would maybe trigger my gen ed kids or something. But again, we'll address how that has solved itself later too. So let's keep going.
Oh, sorry. This is like so not seamless. Sorry. We should have practiced passing a microphone. Okay. Kids receive math, reading, and writing in the functional academics classroom. So I teach content connectors in those areas in the special education classroom. That's how I've decided that I'm going to do it. 8th grade students began at the beginning of the year out in U.S. history with Mr. Richardville. And they also were required by the state to take a college prep and careers class before they graduate. And our district decided to do that in 8th grade, so my kids got to go to that class as well. So we put them in that. I had one girl in 7th grade that was going to a science class, but we do have special education staff that go out into those classes. So 7th grade students began at the beginning of this, yeah, I just said that. Okay, next. Second semester, all the kids are now out for science class. 7th grade student was added to world language. She is a huge gift in speaking different languages, and I did not teach her this. Like, it's amazing. But I will tell you that because of Mr. Richardville and his super excitement about having my kids, Mr. Yule was like, why don't I have your kids? He said that one. I don't understand why I don't have your kids. So, like, now everybody wants my kids. Whoop, whoop. So thanks, Richardville. So they're all like jealous. Why don't I have them? So one period a day, Now, 1 period a day, 55 minutes I spend on life skills, because in my head I just feel like they need it. So we do functional academics, we do in-school jobs, so the kids have that. We'll do some independent work, because I want them to be able to work by themselves for 10 minutes without someone standing there telling them what to do. So I still do that. We still go out in the community 2 times a week. And then I had to add an enrichment block, which is our study hall, because the pace was so fast, and like the parents, I couldn't send the homework home. They're like, what? Like, so I had to add that second semester. So now we do EB. So I reteach, we retaught the cell cycle yesterday. They did awesome, by the way. And Jasmine was there to prove it. But anyway, I help them complete their work, and we reteach things. So that's what we do. So OT and SLP, I don't have the PT this year. I mean, she comes into our room and pushes in, and we do group time, but I don't have any kids that need it. Jasmine, my occupational therapist, is amazing. OTs, oh my word, I love you guys. This is for you. Okay, anyway, they are just amazing the way they think. So she helps with their attention during class. Like, I'll be like, man, I got this kid, he's not sitting still, what can I do? Like, so she helps brainstorm and gets us little tools from her little cute closet. Speech, she pushes in. She goes out in the community now, and she actually comes into my room during math, reading, and writing. So she does a great job with helping foster communication. Math, reading, and writing. So understanding the content connectors, I talk with my gen ed teachers gratefully, like these guys do so much now, but like for math and reading, I really don't know what all of that means. So I have math and reading teachers that I talk to a lot. Like the girl next door is a math teacher, and I like, okay, can you help me understand what this means? Like, because I really don't understand. So that helps. Examples of the IM test, examples, they show the tier breakdown. So I use that a lot. If you guys haven't pulled those out yet, those are amazing ways to see where they're breaking them down and how they're breaking them down and what your kids need to know. I do a lot of research on YouTube and the internet. I like to watch videos myself. We do have ULS. I use it. I don't use it like I used to. I think someone said they used it for everything before. We did the same thing. It just doesn't align as well, I don't feel like. I do a lot of creating my own resources, teacher pay teacher, and then unpacking content connectors. One of the best things that we've done this year, and Ashley Quick helped facilitate this, is we got together with New Pal High School and junior high, and we sat down together. Because there's only one of me in my district, I get to sit with her, and we like curriculum mapped, and we unpack things, and because you know, like they all get together with their PLC groups and talk about things, and I'm like, yeah. It's like you can be there to kind of listen, but you don't really know until you sit down. Like when you sit down with friends, friends, I call them friends, but. So if anybody wants to brainstorm for junior high, I'm here. Okay. Awkward pass.
So in social studies, like I said, I was excited to have her students in my class. I believe in group work, or I sit all my students in groups so they can all collaborate. And so what I did, whenever I made the seating chart, I placed one of Anna's kids with 3 or 4 gen ed students. So all year they've been working with gen ed students, and they're able to help them along, especially on projects. We do a lot of projects in my class, so they're always in there, in those groups, participating in those. So Ed Puzzle, I mean, different things that I utilize for this. I do a lot of Ed Puzzles, flip grids. I'm going to show you one of those here in a second. But from there, I'm able to modify the content from what the gen ed students are doing to help Anna's kids understand, because everybody's school motto is all kids can learn and all kids deserve to learn. And hopefully in my class, the students are learning, and I mean, just that modification is huge. Anna, we work together, and I think we've done a pretty good job getting the students to learn. So here are a couple flip grids from the students. I don't know if I don't think they'll work because they're YouTube. But on the left, that is a student, one of Anna's students with his peer group, or the gen ed group. And they did a really good job of giving him a part and allowing him to participate. And on the right, that is Kiana. I always pronounce it wrong. Kiana, she does sit off on her own with Miss Anna. And she's a funny one because we think that she's just coloring the whole time, but she's actually paying attention at the same time. One time, I was going to show it later, but we showed a video about 9/11, and she started crying. She was over there coloring, and we didn't think she's paying attention, and she starts crying because of this video. So she is paying attention in her own way, but Miss Anna was able to get her to participate with this Flipgrid by making pictures of the pilgrims, and then she was able to communicate this way. So this was the assessment for her. She can't, I mean, I'm sure she can write on her own. I haven't seen that much, but this was a good way to assess what she knew about the pilgrims.
You guys have to watch it. It's like adorable. Okay. All right.
Here's a modified versus gen ed assignment. So on the right, that's the gen ed assignment. So I had a list of all the things that Andrew Jackson did in his life, so as president and before. And they had to list it in good, bad, and ugly because he did a few good things, then a lot of bad things. So, and then they had to rate him and write a little assignment or write a paragraph of what they thought he was. On the left, just to get them Miss Anna's students familiar with Andrew Jackson, they had to color the picture just to see, visualize him, and then look up facts about Andrew Jackson. And then Miss Anna and the IAs helped them decide, is he good or bad? So that's my modification. So that's an example.
Okay, and that's just a picture of my room in science doing labs. They can choose to work with gen ed or they can work with their own group. It's nice to include them in all those. You can go ahead. This is a model assessment. This is just one where I go through. We still focus on the standards, obviously, but we compare it down greatly. And this is just a paper example, but a lot of times we have the digital forms like Richardville had there that are really focused just on the standards and not really as broad-reaching as some of the other things can be for gen ed. You want to do your answer? I'll do it since I got it. But after all my problems before, not my problems, my worries before were solved after just having them in there for a while, working with Ms. Anna and to get those assessments so they were catered to these students, where it was a breeze with her help. She's awesome with that. Like I said, I communicate my standards that I want, and we work together to get what we need, and then those are great assessments. And then also, the kids, gen ed kids really do love them when they're in there, and they were, sometimes I get cynical with the junior high kids, but they are so accepting, and even just having these kids in brightens my day and their days too, so it's a great thing. And if you just keep working on your gen ed teachers if you don't have enough in your building, because there's a lot that will love to have them in there.
So for me, like I said, I was excited to have the students. It truly did help me grow as a teacher because it was a little work. I had to modify assignments and stuff. But from there, students that had IEPs that weren't top echelon, it helped me to modify assignments for them as well. So I have a little 3-tier system going for. I've leveled it in my classroom, and it's really helped me grow as a teacher.
So I had my first semester, a girl that was in science class for 7th grade, she presented with her peers for engineering project and a science fair project. They've been exposed to gen ed standards. They're keeping on pace. I mean, they're getting all science and history. And I'm learning so much. My husband thinks, how did you graduate to be a teacher if you don't know this stuff? I'm like, did you know? Anyway, I had them writing hypotheses. So really, all kids of all abilities all together, it's been a really great experience overall. Oh, I know we had some examples like of Kiana and stuff, so there's great ones, but anyway. So challenges, the collaboration and plan time with, I call them experts, but my gen ed teachers are my experts. It's hard for me to get with them. It's before after school, sometimes 10 o'clock at night on email. But access to other special education teachers that teach the same grade band, time creating and modifying assignments. There isn't a curriculum that's already made with all of our alternate content connectors. I mean, seriously, if that was done, whew. Incoming 7th grade students participate, or next step. So we'll have them in geography and science for the kids coming in.
math critical content connectors and reading critical content connectors. I'm going to try to push in, line up with their curriculum map, and push in during just the critical ones out in Gen Ed for math and reading is my goal for next year.
All right, our next team is Fort Wayne Memorial Park Middle School.
Okay, I guess one of our biggest challenges before we get started is that we're the largest school district in the state, so we have 130 students just at the high school level on certificate. So when these changes came down the pike, the concern for us is, oh no, because we have 300 plus students in our functional program. So Deb is going to talk more about the model site that she had at Memorial Park for math, and my work was more with working with Amy with the certificate of completion changes, and a lot of what you've said in the high schools as far as what programs looked like prior, ours were pretty similar. So I'm going to let Deb start and I'll catch up at the end. These two together. Hang on to this for you.
Okay. Alrighty, as Mary Kay said, I teach in a middle school, mainly math. I do have a couple other classes during the day. At the beginning of the year, we started with 64 students that I would service, and we're averaging right now around 58, 59. We had a couple go residential and some moved out of state. We have our classes divided by ability. So we have a teacher that teaches our reading, language arts. We have a vocational teacher. She also teaches science. We have a teacher that does our independent living and social studies. So I mainly focus on math. And so as we were approached about switching our gear, everything was functional. And so we were like, wow, you know, where do we start? What are we going to do? So we started looking at the IM blueprints, and right away we saw, wow, there's 82 that are scored as a 6 on the test between 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so I was talking with our gen ed teacher, and he's like, we don't even teach that much in a year, you know. So then we broke it down further. Well, how many would score as a 6%, but they're guaranteed a question on the test? And then that came to 45, and he was like, wow, we still don't cover that much, you know. So we had several meetings where we started trying to put together a plan. At the beginning of the year, I did 4 days functional skills, 1 day standards. And as we met with Amy, and she's like, I don't think that's going to be enough. I think you're going to have to step it up to cover everything. And so we started putting together our curriculum map and how are we going to do it. And we tried to align 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but then we found out our school district went through a big curriculum writing project last summer, and math was one of the areas covered. And so if we're talking about positive, negative numbers, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade do not teach that at the same time of year. So that made it difficult to plug in on collaboration or, you know, what time of year should I teach that? Am I going with the 6th grade time, the 7th grade time? How do I do that? So that's kind of where we were in the beginning of the process. So our main goal was let's get it incorporated into math. Let's see how it's going to work, cover as much as we can, and kind of work through. We didn't have resources, so trying to survey different resources that were out there and see what we could come up with. We also had to figure out how to blend all 3 grades to service the number of students that we have. You know, how to level those lessons to cover kids that, you know, as you all have different levels, almost the severe level up to we have mild students in our program. And then how do we find time to still teach those functional skills that they really need to be independent in life? And you can incorporate those into the content connectors, but at some time you still have to have that time to sit down and teach the strategy of how to learn that skill. So that was a big challenge for us. And like I said, in the fall, the gen ed teacher and I sat down and we just started picking apart all the content connectors, and we probably scrapped our curriculum map 3 or 4 times before we finally came up with something that we thought that would be a good plan for us. Also, through Mary Kay's help, Fort Wayne Community gave me access to a lot of the curriculum programs that we already had in the district, so I could start going through those and see what would fit the needs of our students. These were some of the things as we broke down the content connectors, and let's group what we can among the 3 grades. So these were some units that we came up with that we're going through, and there are several standards, content connectors under each one of those. I put this up here as an example, and I have to brag on this student. She was one that was just stuck, and she was making no progress. If you gave her anything she had not seen before, anything she thought was difficult, my room was destroyed in 2 minutes or less. And it always resulted in administrators being called and several times higher authority being called to our school. And here she's solving for the value of a variable. She did this 2 weeks ago. So she's trying new things, branching out, and she's even volunteering to answer questions in class and stand up and give examples to the class. This was an activity that we did, so we're still working on the functional skills. Taking your turn, being a gracious winner or loser, being polite when you speak to others, but they had to add and subtract integers using a number line while playing a board game. We just finished a unit on fractions, decimals, percentages, and ratios. So they thought it was really cool to have an activity where they had to figure out the ratios and they could eat the Fruit Loops at the end of class. And then they also had to glue them on to make their own ratios and describe it to their groups. Our next steps this summer, Fort Wayne Community Schools is going to go through writing curriculum for the functional classrooms, and math, language arts, science are all going to be covered. So there are many of us that will be put together to look at those content connectors and write curriculum. In my school, we're looking at how we structure our curriculum and who's going to teach what for next year. Because as we start moving more into content connectors, there's not as much time for functional skills. Things that teachers have taught before are not covered in the content connectors, but they're still very important to be independent. So we're restructuring who's going to teach what at what time of the day. And then we're just going to continue to expand our lessons. Next year we'll be branching out, like I said, into language arts and science and social studies. So.
Thanks. Just a few notes on the certificate of completion, because that was the part that I had most input on. When we started out, our goal this year was just to turn the students' schedules from just non-credit community life skills schedules to schedules that look like general ed schedules. So, and to expose kids to general ed content. And if we could start there, then we would continue to look more at students going out for general ed classes. We had always taught our 4 areas, so we always had a functional academics, a math, a reading, and then we had daily living skills and vocational skills. And we were really still are a very strong functional program, but we didn't have the academic piece. So to try to sell applied biology and applied algebra courses at the high school setting in a district that's as large as ours was very difficult. Just, getting collaboration with gen ed teachers, not always an easy thing. So we still have a lot of work to do. We have a 4-year plan together, but it's a struggle. And then our other struggle is we have a 4-year plan, but for our severe population, we have a good 25 students who have severe disabilities. And in those classrooms, because those students usually stay with us until they're 22, we need to have a 6-year plan, and we need to see they're going to earn units for that certificate. What's that going to look like on a slower progression? So that's kind of what we're looking at for next steps for our certificate of completion. And I just want to end on a story that I really like. I had a case conference a few months ago, and prior to the case conference, in August, when these students' schedules changed to kind of reflect those courses, I was getting a lot of telephone calls in the office saying, there's been a mistake. My son is in applied algebra. It's like, no, it's not a mistake. These are the new courses. And so trying to explain the rigor that's happening and the changes to parents was difficult. So one parent in particular was very upset that her son had these classes and just didn't understand why. So we were in a case conference, and when it gets to the part about present levels, the teacher asked the student, Tommy, what are you learning in math? And so, 99% I'm sitting back thinking he's going to talk about telling time or counting change or something like that. And he said, symmetry. And I just kind of looked over at the principal like, did he just say symmetry? And so it's like, oh my gosh, this is working. It does work. We don't know how much students know. And so when we expose them to general ed content, great things happen. So really excited to be a part of this process.
Deb does a phenomenal job fusing those social skills and the academic tasks right along with each other. So I'm glad they got to share. Our next team is Hoover Elementary School from Crawfordsville.
So we're elementary, so we theme things. That's just how we roll. And when I think about our group, I think of us kind of like as the Brady Bunch. Like we're just a bunch of people that come together, and so that's kind of how I referred to us for our PowerPoint. So if you want to sing the theme song in your head when you see the little titles on each thing, go for it. I tried my best. I'm no Gershwin, but so there you go. So this is our staff, and I realize I'm wearing the same shirt in my school picture as I am today too. So that's, why not, So it's good times. So here's our story. So we had a very eager staff. We have a great staff. We actually were very lucky that we have a lot of staff members on our team, so it helps kind of figuring out with kids and where to go and what to do. So we had a really eager staff, and we were looking forward to building that stronger foundation. We had our puzzle pieces. We just need to put those puzzle pieces together. So some of our things that we needed help with. One was we have unique curriculum, but where to start? So we ended up getting our unique curriculum this year, and so we started to look at it, and we were like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff that goes with unique. So we were kind of lost, didn't know where to start, where to pick up with. And so we had this great tool, but we just didn't know how to use it. Also, raise your hand if you love curriculum mapping. Yeah. So that was another thing. We didn't really have really good curriculum maps to go with our content connectors. So once again, it was just we had our puzzle pieces, we just didn't have a way to connect them yet. And then training. We had great staff, but we also finding the time to train those staff members and on, academics, the curriculum, unique, just, basic skills, things that they needed to learn that, when do we do that? And when do we do that? So, and then I love this meme. So students, if you ever want to know what a teacher's mind feels like, imagine a web browser with 2,879 tabs open all the time. So, and then you add 1,000 with the unique. So there you go.
700 pages.
Yeah, 700 pages. So one day we met a girl named Meredith, and she came in and she helped us kind of take what we had and put those into goals. So our goals were to align curriculum maps with content connectors, also use unique, and then train our staff. So that was kind of our framework. And we did get to train our staff too on content connectors, and that was wonderful. And then the other great thing is when we sat down with our staff and we were able just to kind of sit together, we learned a lot about the staff and just unique skills that they have. We learned that Mauricia, she was a psychiatrist, I think, when she was in Mexico. So we learned about all of these awesome skills that our paras had that we had no idea that they had, and to help us kind of tune into their strengths to help with the kids. So that was really cool for us. And then our challenges with our goals were that we had aides leaving. So that could be, sorry. We had some aides that left during the school year, 2 or 3,
Three so far.
3 so far. So, we train, but then they leave, and, how do we handle that? And then understanding unique and grasping everything that comes with it. So, did you want to talk a little bit about unique at all, or are you good? Okay, yeah. Got to hold on to all this. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, as far as the unique program, for me, it was at the beginning of the year mostly functional skills in the classroom, and then I was shown the unique program, didn't really know where to go with it. My first instinct was I printed everything out. I gave them the warning in the copy room. If it has anything to do with all of this, this is my stack. Just don't bother it. You may have papers in here, probably not going to get them back. So then the other part was, for us being elementary, we do so much hands-on. That's the way my kids learn best. So I gave them the other warning that if the price from Hoover Elementary on colored copies goes up, it's me. It's me. Because I'm not going to Staples and printing all this out. Not going to happen. So, but I've gone through, yet again, the elementary person in me. Everything has been laminated. Everything's in color. Everything has been bound as books and everything. I want my kiddos to be able to have the access to them on our smart boards, on the touchscreen computers, and I also want them to have the versions directly in front of them. So that has made a big difference for us as far as incorporating those academic skills more so into my classroom, because a lot of our skills right now are still hand over hand. Over half of my class is nonverbal, so that poses a challenge for us as it is, and several of them are not able to do it independently whatsoever. So I would say the challenges as far as staffing, we've had some, as several know, the funding, not being able to pay the ones that we need in the classroom for the skills that we're requiring. As far as the ones that I've been able to keep, it's been fantastic. And it's been great having Laura and Amy and everybody with me to help me. I am the only 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade life skills teacher in our county, so I service 3 different school corporations. So that makes it a little challenging as well, because these are the only ladies I really have to go to. So I can talk to the other gen ed teachers and everything, but it still isn't quite the same. There isn't anyone to go to as far as saying, how am I going to do something like this? So I've gone to finding different things online, different blogs, finding other teachers in the state that teach at the level that I'm teaching, and trying to get past those challenges as well. But so far with the unique program, incorporating that, I have just with even, I would say the last couple of months, seen several changes in my students. They're excited because they're learning about, right now, electricity and energy. And we did a demonstration, as Amy's over here showing. I had one of my aides there talking about friction, rubbing their hands together, trying to feel the heat. And I had a student at the beginning of the beginning of just this semester, I got him from one of our gen ed classrooms in our other corporation, and he was running through the building. He was hiding under tables, flipping the tables, screaming at the top of his lungs, and now he's drawing me pictures. He's a great artist, and we're using that. He's drawing me Superman that's energy and super electricity guy and all of this, and he's creating friction and doing all of these academic lessons that he would have not been able to do if he were at his other school. So we're giving him that unique program. We're giving him just that unique education in general. And he is definitely, he's my star so far. And here he is working on the smart board. We have him doing math because we found out he doesn't like paper pencil. Well, if he doesn't like paper pencil, we're going to use crayons and everything else that we can possibly think of to get him to use it. Just so happens that he likes the smart board markers. So he's doing math now. I spoke with his mother. I actually took this picture the day that it happened. I was like, we've got to do this. We've got to show Mom that you're actually doing this. So she cried because this hasn't been something that he's been able to do in a long time. We know that it's in there. We just have to pull it out, just like it is with whether he is one of my verbal students or my nonverbal students. So just figuring out where they are in there. But yes, so far, so good.
Thanks. Yep, so that kind of goes into how's it helped grow our instruction. Can we keep Meredith? That was our next question. If she just wants to stay over with me in my office all the time, I'd be cool with that. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, okay. But yeah, so, and just communicating, taking things one step at a time. I just want to also point out, Meredith helped us, and facilitate that with taking one step at a time. We don't have to do everything at once. We can kind of really fine tune and work and know that this is a process. It's not going to happen overnight, and we just need to realize I'm kind of impatient when it comes to that. So I need to take a step back and know that it's one step at a time. All right, go ahead. And then our next steps, we're going to continue to build on our curriculum mapping. We have dates set to work with our other life skill classrooms. So we're going to be doing that, working on really using those content connectors and collaborating and building onto that. We're going to continue to use Unique and really start to dig into the progress monitoring side of it and all the data that comes with it, which I'm excited because I love data. And then include more staff from our school. Originally, when we first started, we wanted to include just everybody that enters the classroom, and we kind of made it a little bit smaller of a group as the year went on. So we want to expand that and really begin to include our OT and our SLP and more gen ed teachers in the building, as well as other buildings in our corporation. So we're just very thankful for this opportunity. So thank you.
All right, thank you all. We have our panel up here. I'm going to let them reintroduce themselves. I know they've introduced themselves before, but I think it's important for you to hear now that you've heard a little bit about their districts, their schools, to hear just a little bit about their role in their district. And then we will open it up for questions. So I will come to you with the mic as you have questions regarding any of our presentations. And if we need to go to that district, we can to get those answers. And if not, then we have some guiding questions that we'll have our team speak to as well. So any specific questions that you have about the process, about unpacking or the content connectors in general, please be thinking of those because we'll open it up in just a second. But Laura, if you want to start with just a quick introduction.
I'm Laura Kuhn. I work at West Central Co-op. It's located in Crawfordsville.
Kelly Barker, Vice Principal of Kokomo High School, and I oversee the special education.
My name is Anna Finley. I teach functional academics for junior high.
Jeannie Magnan, I teach functional academics at Hamilton Heights High School.
Perfect. All right, so thinking about today and thinking about all that has been shared, what questions do you have for either our panel or just in general about the process for specific groups? So if you just hold up your hand, I will come to you with the mic and we'll go from there. Susan. And don't mind my clinking of shoes.
I only heard one group here discuss the post-secondary, post-18, 18 to 22 curriculum being built. Do you guys have something specific for the 18 to 22 that you guys are using? Do you continue with the structure? Do you continue to build on the scaffolding after they're 18?
I think I'm the only high school.
I'm high school, but I'm
You're
with her.
high school with. So we don't have specific curriculum 18 to 22. We have focused a lot on trying to ensure that school looks very different for that 18 to 22. So our students participate in commencement. It will be once they reach their 40 units and requirements, but right now after 4 years, and then some will come back. We transition them. We work closely with Bona Vista, and so we transition. Some don't come back after 4 years. Some might come on a modified schedule, but that's a lot of our discussion and planning for the 4-year versus 6-year plan and what those work experiences can look like. Yeah.
Perfect. Any of our other model sites have anything to add to that? High school level. Okay. If you think of it, just flag me down.
What if they built in that the extra 2 years?
We're just in the process of looking at that. The 4-year we've got down. The 6-year we were thinking that we would do a slower progression. So, we have one teacher teaching all of those subject areas in a severe classroom. So maybe making double block periods of math and maybe a science and then a lot of vocational. But since we know they're going to be there on the 6-year path, that just kind of slowing it down so we're not bombarding that teacher with having to teach all those different content areas.
I'm not on the panel, but I'm going to add to that too. Some of the other schools that we've worked with that are implementing the certificate of completion are looking at existing programs that they have. So if they have programs at their career center, they have programs where all students are engaged in certain types of work-based learning experiences, then how can they build out those programs rather than create something completely new, but tap into the resources that are already available.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary Kay, as well. What other questions? While I'm walking there, do you guys want to talk Keeney, do you want to talk a little bit about your units really quickly that kind of align to those content connectors?
Do you want me to talk about English?
Yes.
That's what I
Most particularly English?
So my assistant that I had last year, the year before, and then part of the year until she won the school board, was an English language arts teacher for 40 years in our high school. So she had a really good rapport, of course, with the general ed teachers. So when this all happened, there's a cycle that they do at our high school. So like 2 years they do this rotation of books. Then the next 2 years they do another rotation. So she knew the rotation. So she met with them and said, are you going to do this again? Yes. So then she started writing out what this year would look like, and then she's already written out what next year will look like. So then we take whatever story they're doing in general ed, and we do it. I do it one way, and Susan does it another. She teaches a life skills room. So I always use Romeo and Juliet because it's the easiest one for everybody. So we are not going to do exactly what general ed is doing. We are going more like family tree, ancestry, what's in your name is this week. Susan's class is probably going to do, she can talk more about that, but family, we all have a mom and dad, who's in your family. So we just unpack it all the way down, but we do exactly the same books that our general ed is doing across the board. So we did Flowers for Algernon this year, we did The Crucible this year. So we've been doing some really hard books and they're getting it. We just got done with Kill a Mockingbird. I read parts of the book. We watched parts of the film, but mostly just the main theme that we have to get. It's like the general ed, what we did is they have like themes that this is what you're gonna do, this is what you're gonna do, this is what we hope to get from it. So we try to do the same things. And like Susan's class, when we did The Crucible, was like power and control and gossip, because that's what it really is. And so Susan was able to, Big Bad Wolf, she did a couple of books that were the same theme, so we're all really doing the same thing.
So what you're saying, you're using the same thing that they're doing. What grade are you doing that with? Freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors?
All of them. So their rotation is like a 9-10 rotation, and then 11-12 rotation. But since it wasn't, like this year wasn't mandatory to do the content connectors, but we're doing them, we just had all the kids do the same book because none of them had done any of them. So as it goes on and the rotation happens, then we'll do what 9th and 10th graders are supposed to be doing and what 11th and 12th graders are supposed to be doing.
Like separately?
Yes.
With those graders?
Yes, but in the same room.
All right, well, introduce yourself and then ask your question.
So I'm Sherry Anderson, and I work with high school students. And a question that I have for you is, students who come into your school as a transfer student and have not been a part of the applied units curriculum, what do you do with those students, particularly, let's say, if a 10th grader comes in, has not been a part of the applied curriculum in 9th grade, how do you get those credits back?
That's an administrator question.
That is to be determined. I really, I'm curious what transcripts look like when students start transferring. Because right now, they don't transfer in. Their IEP is the most specific to their courses, where a general ed student we would see and then match up courses most closely. So when all schools are doing this, ideally that very same thing will happen. So if they've taken a social studies class that perhaps we don't offer, we can still grant them that credit for the unit. So to me, that process will look the same when we all get on the same page and are tracking those. So that would be, I think, a combination, and you can hop in here, Heidi, if you want to, but where we're gonna have to really piece together kids that have been earning credits, kids that have been auditing gen ed classrooms, or are earning units. So we'll have students with transcripts for credits and units, and the school system they move to won't have an option but to find the program to, like in a co-op, which school is gonna service their needs.
Kind of piggybacking on those answers, we had a student this year that is older that is looking more for a certificate of completion rather than dropping out, to work on the vocational skills, really look at the employability in those kinds of areas. And so what we've done is looked back on his transcript to see where maybe he didn't earn his credit, but we have the information of what content he did master, where his levels were, and so it may have not been at a passing grade for a credit. We can edit that transcript to say, yes, he would have earned a unit, say in the algebra class he took twice, or in an English 9, and taking a look at that. And so I think it's just going to be harder conversations and getting back with other schools that send things to kind of see what the student did or how they maybe performed, to try and get those to switch over and combine. Because even, and then in some of the classes that he earned credits in, those count towards the 40. It doesn't have to be all units, because in our original discussions, we have students that are earning credits in some of their elective classes, because that's a strength of theirs, and so they may have 40 combined credits and units, because we also want to reflect to employers, to job placements, their complete strengths in the areas that they have them. Yes, do they have some deficits in things? Yes, and so we need to make sure we're building that exact profile and not saying if you're a certificate earner that it was all units. Because in theory, we have a couple kids that are in our functional program that are really strong in English and can keep up at a base level. Math, wow, tough. Science classes that are math-based, again, and so really making sure we highlight that it's strengths and weaknesses, not one size fits all because of the diploma. And the same way around the other way, a kid could be a diploma student, have the 44 credits, and have 2 vocational courses that are units because they're working in an adaptive that they need that level. But if they have their 44 credits, they could have 5 or 6 units, it doesn't matter. So. Yeah, it's that combination. Yeah, Mary Kay.
On the same topic, we've had some conversations about, for those students that might be in a hole as far as units, that what are we going to do with ESY? Is ESY going to be a time when students then can earn those units over the summer? And then the other question that we were kind of pondering too is that we have a lot of students on homebound. So when we put a student on homebound and they're now needing to meet the needs of these units, we're going to have to be offering, where before we would just offer, maybe an hour of functional math and an hour of functional reading. How are we going to keep kids on track to make sure that they're earning these units? So these are all conversations that we're having.
Absolutely. Thinking about, Yep, thank you.
I was just wondering how you're going to address these new requirements in the IEP. Are you going to list, say for a 9th grade English unit, are you going to list specifically in the IEP what the student needs to do to earn that unit?
We just went through lots of training with the diploma TORs, and the place in the IEP that asks for their progress towards their earning their diploma, I forget exactly how it's worded, they already write so the credits that they've earned, and I've asked really for a narrative, kind of like in present levels, so that no parent is ever out of the loop. Now, this should be happening in the counselor's office, but since it's in the IEP, we're addressing it too and inviting the counselors as to where their child is progressing towards the diploma. So I anticipate that same thing will occur when we start next year. It's just all come in phases and not to overwhelm the teachers, but we'll document the same things. We already have in PowerSchool, the transcript will look like units the same way credits are earned. So it will be easy for teachers to see, you've already earned these 5 units, now we need to look at these. And that's when we talked about earlier the 4-year plans we're coming up with. And so we can offer those classes really in rotation also.
Perfect. Thinking about collaboration while we wait for the next question, thinking about collaboration with gen ed teachers, do you guys want to talk to how you've worked through that process, what you found really effective as you were collaborating, thinking about to next year for 1920, what that could look like, what that relationship is?
I have the best gen ed staff, right? Yeah, they're supposed to get applause for that. No. Like I said, I just started out kind of small, like just talking to Mr. Richardville because I knew he was an IA and he liked my kids. You know, you can tell when people really like that. So he would come up and talk to us and stuff. So I just asked him, what do you think about having my kids come in your room? And he's like, sure. So we started just there, and I think it just kind of snowballed because of his excitement too. But I know he usually just in his schedule at 10 o'clock at night, am I right? 10 o'clock at night, he's posting the next day assignments. So especially at the beginning, I would shoot him an email, we'd talk back and forth via email, why he was on and I was on. So that was kind of like that. With Mr. Yule, I know that I'll walk in and he's like, this is what we're doing today because this is new. So we kind of talk through it and we kind of modify kind of on the spot. We were just talking, why everyone was presenting, that we need to have a data plan, right? We just need to sit down and ask the administration, can we sit down just to talk this stuff through? So as far as math and ELA, I just asked my ELA and my math teacher, hey, do you have 15 minutes that I could sit down and talk to you and ask you what this means? Because really a lot of those content connectors, it's just not in my verbiage. I mean, it's not where I was taught or trained. So they've been really open to helping. So that's kind of how I collaborate. But I think next year we'll try to see if we can't even find time from administration for us to get subs just to sit down and kind of oversee units and what's going on.
We are going to that's our next point of focus, to write some clear communication so all 4 teachers are communicating with gen ed teachers the same way. So we intend to have a 1-pager for the students, strengths, weaknesses, just some main points that it would really help the gen ed teacher know when this student that they're not really familiar with comes into class. And then making sure that we're communicating and introducing the students to that setting, walking them up when no one's there to the classroom so they can get familiar. All of these classes are downstairs. Their current classes next year, as they are mainstreamed, will be upstairs, which is a very scary place. So we're going to kind of ease them into that. And they've started with really our champion teachers. There's 3 or 4 that were the same way. Yes, have them come in. We'll just figure this out. So we'll just kind of ease into the others.
That's also something that we're going to do more of next year as well. And part of that too is with that curriculum mapping piece, inviting the instructional coaches that are in the schools, involving them as well, and seeing kind of what kind of pointers they have for us on that, and then expanding with that. And I know at the high school level, we've had a lot more integration in electives, so that's been positive and building on that, but it's just that process.
And if I can just add to that, we sent 2 students out that were like, oh, this is kind of boring. You know, their strength was history. They were very interested. And them being really kind of scared, we did not anticipate, right? Because they're excited to leave. They want to be challenged. And there were some very strange behaviors and then refusal to go after the whole process had been done. So asking them what would help and getting them transitioned, as well as making that a priority, as well as the gen ed teacher.
Oh, I know you guys are really good, but our English teacher at our high school, oh, this girl. So I have a student in regular English 11, and we do no modification, we do nothing for her, because the teacher's awesome and she just takes care of it. So they had to do research papers this year, and she decided she's going to do one on ghost. And so our teacher, Wendy Russell, she said, you have to have 2 sources. You're going to do exactly what everyone else is doing, but instead of like 4 sources for each side, you're going to do 2. So she read the first one, which was, I believe in ghosts, and she loved it. Well, then she had to read the one that we don't believe in ghosts, and she said, oh my gosh, why do I have to do this? And it was a whole conversation, so she was already learning the whole thing. So then she had to go through everything about a research paper. She was sitting in class, Wendy's helping her, we're all doing the things we're supposed to do. So then fast forward like 3 weeks later, I'm doing this like really good presentation up on a PowerPoint with my kids. I think I'm all good that day. You know, it's a good day in our room. And somebody's knocking at the door, and it's Wendy, and she's like, I totally have to interrupt. And I'm like, oh man, you know, I got them all settled doing their thing. So Wendy started doing this dance, this backward dance in our room. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally teaching this lesson. Wendy's in the room doing this backward dance, and I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, Anna turned in her research paper, Anna did her research paper. I was like, are you kidding me? So it was like a huge moment. So it was a big moment for her, it was a big moment for Anna, it was a big moment for us. So I would just tell everyone to make sure you take time to celebrate the big things that the kids do, because it's a really big deal for me to do a research paper. So someone with significant needs that got through this process and then has the general ed teacher totally interrupt our class and do a backwards dance in the room, that meant so much to her, but then the other kids get to see it as well.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what we get here. We all do the same thing. We're all supported. So that's just one of the things I really think is important about this.
Judy Morales, middle school. I was kind of asking the middle school teacher, I forgot. Anna. How many like special ed students in general, like LD, MI, MO, or whatever, are there?
I think there's about 100.
Okay, and so are those kids like in the same classes that your kids are going into?
Some of them are, yeah. I mean, they push out for, most of them push out. Like we do have an all core reading and math class, but that's very small. Like everybody else is out in gen ed.
Right, and so you have 6 in your, okay.
But I don't, like, I have 6 kids, but 3 go to one class period in science and 3 go into another class period. So they're not all 6 in one class.
And are they grade level, or are they just going to?
We're going to 8th grade, but they are, like, one of them is going from, we have 7 and 8. The one girl we had in 7th grade science, we just moved her to 8th grade science because staffing-wise for us, it was, like, it would make more sense to put our staff where the kids were instead of, because she was kind of higher functioning. But, so we have all of them in there. Now with Mr. Richardville, we have 5 kids in that class.
And then how much support?
I have, there's another IA with me, and the one little girl we have over in the corner, I kind of give her one-on-one support. Then there's 4 other kids, and actually we had one of the boys sitting on the other side of the room with my assistant. He actually ran up to class. Now they all walk to class on their own now, but he ran up to class, moved my IA's chair across the room. So every day she kept walking in there, she's like, my chair is over on the other side of the room. So she would pull it back. Well, finally, we realized he was racing up there and moving her chair away from him. So I asked him, do you want to move? And he said, yes, sit with friends. And so I went up to Mr. Richard and was like, yeah. So he rearranged and he sits right in the middle. I sent a picture to his mom, like sitting with his peers. I go, look at your boy. Like, seriously, I can't even tell you. So everyone's like, sitting there, and here he is, okay, sitting in his group pod. Like, and then he sees me across the room and he's like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. I mean, it was just awesome. And his mom, I sent it to her, and she's like crying. Like, she goes, I can't even tell you, like, how exciting this is for her. So she was excited too, and I don't even remember what you asked me. But yeah, there you go.
And my one other question would be,
Oh, see, we got excited about the little boy sitting with his peers.
I don't know, it'll come back to me.
We'll come back to you when you think of it. Talk a little bit about paraprofessionals and how you utilize paraprofessionals, IAs, support staff, and how do you share high expectations with support staff and get them to understand that least dangerous assumption?
That's still a work in progress. We've spent a lot more time with teachers than we have with paras. We had a meeting with the paras. We felt like it was really fair in this transition to make sure that they also had a voice. At the beginning of the year, I really relied on that voice really being able to be conversations with their teachers, but their teachers were also undergoing a lot of change. So maybe at semester, I met with just the paras to let them ask questions and talk about why and talk about really celebrations too. They were shocked at how the students, they knew last year, we had majority of the same paras minus one or two. So they saw all the planning the teachers did last year. It's just conversation. What we haven't really done yet, because we don't have as many students going out into gen ed classes, is we'll have to really work with paras what that support looks like as well. And that could come from the one pager from the students that this is what the gen ed teacher's seeing and the para. And it's finding that balance, you know, with our most fragile medical needs that need to be with adults. And I'm hoping, I believe that when we capitalize on staff's strengths, then they're really happy even doing the most difficult jobs. So every year I'm asking paras, do you like what you're doing? Do you like, you know, what could you see different next year? And kind of having that voice and making sure that they're heard and their concerns. But they shared, I cannot believe these students are doing what we're asking them to do. And in fact, when we did all this planning last year, we thought our students from the Autism Center would struggle the most, right? Because they had the most structure in their day in one room from center to center. We didn't have any of them. I mean, they came in like confused like every other student the first week of school. So as the teachers, we did a fantastic job implementing the plans that we had laid last year. And we also made room for knowing that first semester was going to mean tweaks and changes based on what the students were coming in with, because it was new for all of us. So I would just say that communication could not be more important, especially for the paras.
And for us too, it was when we sat down with our paras and we, Meredith facilitated and helped with PD just to kind of explain in more detail about content connectors and the academic process. We got to talk with them more, and I think I said it in our before, but we found more about what their strengths were as para educators and what their backgrounds were, so that kind of helped us. You know, we know one has a very creative side, so we play off of that. We have one that has she has more of a nurturing side from what she's done. So we play off of that. We use their strengths, and it helps build that confidence too. And it just helps kind of bring that team together. I mean, they are there all the time. I mean, they're holding down the fort for you today. So, so it's just building on those strengths and to help with that confidence piece that I think has, and giving them more voice, because they are a part of the team.
I think as far as content connectors, like I said, for years we taught life skills. So my IAs, one of them has been an IA, I think maybe 16 years. So she's been with me, like understanding, like she's been in this kind of program and understanding so it's kind of changing their philosophy a little bit. And like she said, they're not sitting in the same meetings I'm sitting in. So I kind of had to transfer that to my instructional assistants. They were skeptical too. I mean, but I told them I'm skeptical. Like I'm just being honest. I don't know if it's gonna work. Like I even told my parents, I don't know if it's gonna work. We're gonna try it. If it doesn't work, I mean, we'll back out. But like you said, we don't know what they're getting. Just when that little girl was crying, and the whole time we're thinking for a month that she is not paying attention. Like she is not getting any of this. I'm sitting there thinking, is this even worth having her in here? But when she started crying, it was like, oh, she's getting this, and I'm assuming that she's not, right? Even when I'm sitting in gen ed. So I guess them being a part of it and just going out with me and me being beside them saying, I'm not sure if it's gonna work. We talk through it. This is what's good and bad. And I think another thing, if you're going out in gen ed, don't always think it's gonna go perfectly. I mean, just like you and I, when we do a lesson, sometimes it flops. I mean, for gen ed teachers, sometimes what we modify, oh my gosh, we're gonna back up. That's why I added EB and 2 at the end of the day, just to reteach, because we know, I talked to Melissa Doobie at break, we know that our kids need repetition, right? They need that. So I would just reteach some of the things that are happening in gen ed. So I think it's important to work alongside your professional assistants and empathize with them and say, I get what you're going through. I'm going through it too. But then we do celebrations, you know, too. The backward dance. Yeah.
Wendy's backward dance. I think Susan and I are in a different position because our IAs are in our room most of the time. They go out to classes, but we are able to collaborate with them. So my IA is back there, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
And she's awesome. And what we do is we know where we're going, because I love the curriculum mapping, so I already know what we're doing. So we sit and I'll say, all right, we're gonna do family. Look up everything you can about family. And we just start going back and forth, and she'll say, well, Swiss Family Robinson's in the flex reading, like that's just an example. And then we're like, okay, that's about jungle, and they're doing Galapagos Islands and Darwin in biology right now. So we just try really hard to just put everything we can into our lessons, so we're reaching all these different places. And then like Susan's IA is a biology major, so she doesn't have to reinvent the wheel at all. She is awesome. She has it all down. So I think that's the important part about the paraprofessionals in our building, is working together. And plus, if you're excited about it, you're probably gonna do a really good job teaching it. Like, I like the Romeo and Juliet, and then I'm gonna show part of that Nomeo and Juliet. I don't know if you guys have seen that. So funny. And just coming up with different things that she will like to do or I like to do. Like, we're struggling in biology a little bit right now because it's so hard, and we're like, they can't get this because they can't read. And so we're trying to come up with things, but at least we have each other to talk through it. And then we go down to Susan's and get help, so.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I have a question, I guess, for all of you. You talk about including those that have significant needs and that are severe and profound. How do you include them in the gen ed classes? What does that look like for you guys? And what do you do when they have a tantrum and they're crying and screaming and hitting and punching? How do you handle that?
I would probably ask someone who does life skills. My students do go out. My kids are complete inclusion, so they do go out for biology, PE, health, art. I do the English, the math, and the vocation in my room, and then like a study hall, personal skills, whatever you call it. So I don't know, because I don't have children with severe needs that go to a regular classroom. I don't.
Okay, I do. Like I said, I wasn't sure if it was gonna work, right? So I took all of my kids and we went out. One of the boys, like at the beginning, the boy that moved the chair across the room, we had a basket full of things for him to do that we knew he liked to do. So it was like, he liked to draw like tigers, I don't know. So we would put a book in there with colors and like, so things that we knew he'd like to do just to keep him sitting and being in the room. Well, he would need that person next to him to do that. But by like a month in, I mean, he'd moved her chair away from him and he didn't want any of that. He wanted to sit with his peers. So he showed that he could, like he wanted to be away from what we were trying to give him. One of them like threw their computer down. I wasn't even in the room. I think we ended up moving him out. I was out that day. He's on the spectrum, so when things are off, right? I was out of the building. We had a sub. We had a meltdown in class, so they just moved him back to the special education room, like they had someone take him. We had a little girl in Mr. Richards' room throw a fit. I mean, he just kept teaching, and I'm back there trying to like calm her down. And then we had another little boy one day. He asks, "Are you happy?" And as a special education teacher, I even tell my subs, if you're not happy, I don't care, you just tell him you're happy, okay? Like, if he says, are you happy? The answer is yes, always. Like, I tell everyone that. The teachers know, everybody knows you are happy. Well, this one little boy in gen ed class, he said, "Are you happy?" And the little gen ed boy said, "No." He flips out, right? He's upset. He's writing. You know, what's wrong with Josh? Josh is not happy. Like, and you can just see it escalate. So we had to take him out, take him for a walk, bring him back in. Like, so, but you know what? In a way, that's real life. Someone's not going to be happy. And I feel like when I'm reflecting back on it, sometimes I probably should just be honest, but I'm like tiptoeing around him. Like, you know, we don't want to say we're not happy. So it kind of was a life lesson for me too in that way. So they participate, we modify the assignments, yes, no. I mean, you can take yes, no cards and ask them to participate. But like I said, we bring a bag of goodies that we know that they like. That's kind of the initial transition, but he doesn't want them, like, at all. Does that help?
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about least dangerous assumption a little bit and how you started with that? Because I know all of you kind of started with that path of mastery and exposure. I know Anna, you had spoken deeply on that and worked through it.
So we are working a lot with the exposure versus mastery and allowing that to really be a place of comfort for the teachers. It isn't that they have to master grade level standards, but their exposure. And so we have some students at the high school that have not gone out yet to gen ed classes. In fact, we have more that have stayed in the self-contained room than have gone out. And that's just because that's where we are in the process. We talk a lot about their individual plans. We have about, at Kokomo High School, we have around 350 kids with IEPs, maybe a little more, and around 45 that are earning a certificate. So that 45, we probably have 4 or 5 that would be really significant, 2 wheelchair-bound, nonverbal, actually 3, we had to move in. 1 has significant behaviors. And so right now where I'm at, and I'll be seeking guidance from Heidi as well, is that the intention would not be at the risk of disrupting an entire classroom because this little guy does have really extreme behaviors. I'm curious as we raise the academic expectation, and this will change over time as K-8 is more prepared when they get to us, that it will become more of something that we just do. Right now it's different. So we are kind of asking them and exposing them to things that they really haven't been much before. And that's different for every school. So we're referring back to the students really their IEP and their strengths and where can we have them go out and make it a really pleasant experience. And then we have our OT, some of our team that wasn't here today, working with one of those little girls that's wheelchair bound, nonverbal, that we don't know, with a switch where she can, and he had decided that perhaps just eye gaze would give us some answers. So we're really digging into that support staff to see how we can get that exposure really is benefiting the students and how we can capitalize on that. So I'm not sure that was a great answer, but it looks different for each one. Our most severely behaved, my hope is, as we raise that expectation, they stay not busy, engaged, so the behaviors decrease. That's my hope, and we'll just continue to evaluate that.
Hi, I'm Laura. I have a life skills elementary classroom, and I'm going to throw 2 questions out there while I've got the microphone. One, have you seen any change in the number of students? Are they still all taking the alternate test, or have you switched some of those around? And second, most of the presentations were from high schools today, and I'm curious, where are the middle schools and elementaries in your corporations at? Because we have tried to start that curriculum map at the elementary to hopefully build some of that before they get up to the upper levels. So I'm just curious where some of those other corporations are at.
So first question was, sorry, go back. What was that first question?
Alternative assessment.
Oh, alternative assessment. As of now, yeah, all of ours are on the alternative assessment right now.
Ours are too.
Yeah.
Or yours.
And then second, for that process, we are starting that. So thankfully, we have really eager teachers as well at the high school level that have been wanting to work on that map and to expand it. So our school district is a bit unique that houses our program. Well, we have three schools that go into this co-op. But the district that houses it is a K1, 2, 3. There's a K1 building, 2, 3 building, and a 4, 5 building. And what we've done is we have a K1, 2 and K1 and 3, 4, 5 in our 4, 5 building. So we're working on that, kind of how do we kind of collaborate with that, especially with those other grades. But we are going to start with our maps. Right now we've been working at the 3, 4, 5 level, and then this summer we're going to start incorporating the K1, 2. The K1, 2, everyone's going to work together, but what we're trying to do is build onto that K1, 2 and then slowly build up, so that way there isn't that kind of shock when they get older and when they move on. And that way it'll be more of a seamless transition as opposed to a bumpy one.
And thinking about, we want to be mindful of time, but could you all expand thinking about how you're going to level that up across your buildings? Laura spoke about, including the K1 space, thinking about how we get middle school involved. Could you each speak to that as kind of a closing and what your next steps are, getting all the teachers involved?
So yeah, we're just trying to get all of our teachers involved in the fact that we are, like I said, we've started kind of in the middle, and so now we're going to go back and include our K1 with that, and so our K1, 2 and our 3, 4, 5 are going to be working together, and thankfully, this year Heather's had a lot of experience with that too, so she's going to be our strong leader in that, helping out with our other teachers. And then we've also participated, I think last fall, we did a Project Success meeting where we came together, and so all of our teachers came together and we created some goals. And one of those goals was to curriculum map for everyone. So, and we're going to do that. We're going to do it this summer, which I'm super excited about. So it's just building that and having it go into the middle school and high school.
Our K through 8 is kind of learning and planning. They've been to the Project Success professional development, so my hope is, I don't supervise any of those, so I'm trying to communicate with the director and there's a K through 5 special ed supervisor and then 6 through 8. So my hope is that that it becomes more of a priority, and I don't think it's just for lack of desire, but timing. There's just a lot on their plate, so to bring that to a level of importance, my hope is this summer that there'll be some professional development opportunities. We went to visit the classrooms. They were asking us some really great questions. Heidi and I went to go see K through 8. The teachers were asking us for feedback. They were glad that we were in their room. They were asking some fantastic questions about what the high school is doing. So we're excited to just kind of capitalize on that energy and let professional development kind of work its way up.
I want to answer her question about the behavior, the significant behavior. This little boy was in an ABA up until grade 6. He was in our alternate program for 6 months, and then he transitioned to me, and then I put him in gen ed. So I was thinking significantly these behaviors, he's not going to make it. That's why we had all these bags. But like, he's proven that he can, I guess, is my point. I said, like, sometimes you just have to raise the expectation, and I think they show you more than what we assume, as she said. As far as the rest of our district, our assistant director, Angie Brown, has been, like, this has been on her radar since the very beginning. So she has told us years ago that we need to start looking at these content connectors. We meet monthly. We've been working with Ashley Quick, and we've met with Project Success for the last 2 years. So all of our teachers are teaching content connectors. Our director encourages us to start with one. Like I said, when she brought the binders, I think we were like, what? Like, are you crazy? So then she's like, just do one. And then we went to the critical standards. And so we just kind of like baby steps. And I think some of us are more overwhelmed than others. I just chose gen ed because I felt like pacing-wise, it would keep me on track. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, but I feel like it's been really beneficial. So we are all teaching them across it. The best training with Project Success, though, was when we got to meet with New Pal, because we were working along someone that was doing exactly what we were doing. so we could break down things and curriculum map together and discuss things. Because even when the four of us, because there's one at every level at our building, or our district, we weren't teaching the same thing. I mean, we were teaching content connectors and they all would align and go up, but we couldn't brainstorm with each other on how are you gonna present this, you know, so.
I think our director, Mrs. Lucky, is gonna go ahead and work like we did next year, still trying to meet with the co-op. Isn't that something we talked about? And when we go to the co-op meetings, what we do is we get all the high school together in one spot, the middle school, and then the elementary primary, and they work on ideas for the content connectors, and I think that's gonna go ahead and continue. So I like being a part of a high school group because it makes sense to me, even though I need to know what you guys are doing and where you're coming from. In the beginning, I still need to really get this part down and be really good at this. And then maybe one of my suggestions would be start working more with middle school, Susan and I, to say, these are the things we need to see vocationally, these are the things we need to see, you know, behaviorally, socially, and academically as they come up. So having a good idea of where we are and what we need to do, and now kind of reaching back and saying, this is what we need to see as they're putting their group together. I think that's kind of where we're going. So like you said, we've kind of started at the top in the high school level and we're starting to work down, so.
Absolutely, thank you to our panel. One other thing, if you make sure that you sign in, we will capture email addresses that way. That way we can share that and that you can contact model sites if you have additional questions. I know some of my best questions come when I'm driving home. So as you're heading back to your districts and thinking more in depth about the process, supports that you need, you will have the Project Success website as a guide to our staff and our emails, but also we will be able to kind of share out a group email list. That way you have contact to our model sites and the panel today. Thank you guys for being on the panel and taking time to share your expertise and your different building perspectives. It's so important to have these conversations. Thank you to our teams for sharing out as well. So thank you. We'll let you guys climb down.
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I can't believe it's been 3 hours already. I'm Amy Howie. For those of you who haven't met me, I've been the Director of Project Success for about 5.5 years, and hands down, this is one of the most exciting days we've had. When we joined in partnership with the DOE, it was about 6 years ago, we were met oftentimes with the overwhelmed and the tears and the frustration and some of the real life things that you heard teachers talking about today about how it was overwhelming, how they didn't really believe, how they weren't sure kids could perform. Those were the types of comments that we got over and over again from the field. And so as we started chipping away and you know, the Kelly Barkers were like, I think we can do this. And you know, that in Fort Wayne, they're going, we have to do this. And you know, all of you who presented here today, it's been so exciting to hear your journey. And I really appreciate the high expectations, the thoughtfulness and the intentionality in your process. So understanding, and I know our team kind of has a saying, we have to bring it back. We're going to have to start small because sometimes you know, early adopters or districts that are anxious to get moving want to do all the things right at once, and it's just not possible. And so understanding that, embracing that, and just knowing that you're doing best by kids with every step of the way. Another thing that's been exciting to me, we have a sort of an inside joke when we do trainings, and we'll say, how many special ed teachers in the house? You know, most people raise their hand. How many directors? How many administrators? And I always throw out there, how many gen ed teachers? And it looks like it does right now. There's nobody. But today, how many gen ed teachers are here? Yay! That in and of itself is a huge accomplishment because we say it all the time, and you know, we always invite gen ed teachers, but to hear not only that you're here, and even for the teams that spoke who mentioned their collaboration, maybe their gen ed teachers aren't here today, but they're very much involved in the process, that is huge. To hear a gen ed teacher say, this has changed how I teach, how can that be a bad thing? It's just amazing to hear all of the progress and the high expectations. So thank you to all of the schools that presented today and stuck your neck out and said we're going to do this, and we're going to raise our expectations and kids are going to respond.
I want to thank my team as well. We didn't really take time for introductions, but you heard their names throughout the day, and really we've all been able to get into the districts and work directly. So Meredith, Heidi, Ashley, and Mary, thank you so much for being part of this wonderful progress. Next year's model site, so no one got up and ran as we were talking. That's a good sign. I want to introduce, and if you could just give a wave as we introduce Greenwood High School. All right. Manchester Community Schools. Thank you. South Ripley Elementary. All right. Tippecanoe Valley High School. Very good. And Valparaiso High School. All right, so those of you who are new for next year, welcome. You can see that there's an exciting road ahead, and you will be back here next year presenting and sharing your journey as well. 6. Okay, if you could, one more thing. Any questions for me or the Project Success staff before we wrap up? I do appreciate all of the questions about the certificate of completion, and we continue to provide resources and support as you're rolling out those new requirements for next year. There are a lot of resources on our website. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to us. Also, I heard several comments about paraeducators, and for those of you who don't know, we'll have by the end of the year 3 courses, online courses for paraeducators that are free for all of your paraeducators. So if you have not signed up your paras, feel free to do that. There's a link on our website. Any questions? Okay, so if you can take out your cell phone and you're going to send a text. You're going to text Project Success 1 is the body of the text, and the number that you're texting is 37607. So you're going to text 37607 is the number. Project Success 1 is the message. Has anyone used Poll Everywhere before? It's a great tool for a classroom too. Once you text Project Success 1 to that number, you should receive a message that you've entered the conversation. Has anyone received that yet? Okay, good. So now you can text in your response, and they're just going to capture some data of your feedback for today. So if you could share one takeaway or celebration from today, that would be outstanding. So you just actually type your narrative, type your text into the text box and hit send, and you've captured your feedback. We've captured your feedback. Other than that, if there aren't any questions, thank you all so much for attending, and we look forward to working with you in the future.